Hey everyone, we're gonna just jump right into this and talk about World War II. Since this is a video, we'll be doing most of the same stuff. You'll write down all the stuff that's in red. Either doing it on the Google Doc that I attached here, or you can also just write it down. But you do need to send some sort of proof that you did actually take notes. So if I'm going too fast, obviously it's a video, you can just pause it to finish writing everything down. But we're just going to go ahead and just jump right in. So we've talked about this, what feels like years ago. It was only really a month ago. The Treaty of Versailles at the end of World War I. This took away land from Germany. Didn't allow Germany to have an actual standing army. Made Germany pay for the war. Put the blame on Germany, and then Hitler uses this anger of everyone's against Germany in order to gain some power inside of Germany. So we've talked about Hitler. You've probably heard some stuff about Hitler before from your readings and stuff, but just some general stuff. He's the leader of the Nazi Party. He's a fascist, which is, extreme nationalism, extreme racism. It's the whole idea that not only is Germany the best country, but like other people don't deserve to even exist. It should only be the German people. He's big on militaristic expansion, which is, breaking the Treaty of Versailles. He's extremely anti-communist. Like I said, he's a fascist, but he is very charismatic, which is why a lot of people come out and see him when he gives speeches and why he gets so much support. So there's a picture of Hitler. You've probably seen him before. All right, fascism. Fascism we've talked about a little bit before. Again, extreme nationalism, an authoritarian government, very right-wing. So very, very far to the right. So on the left, if you go very, very extreme to the left, you have communism. If you go very, very extreme to the right, you have fascism. You have power in the hands of the few. So in the case of Germany, it was Hitler basically had most of the power, as well as some of the business owners. And fascism basically comes out as a reaction to the left and their labor movement after World War One. After World War One, people who were working in the factories wanted better conditions, and a lot of them in Europe especially start to go on strike. So people, especially business owners, turn to these fascists in order to crush these labor movements. Fascism in Italy. So it's not just Germany that is joining in on the fascism party. We have Mussolini. Again, extreme nationalism. Militaristic expansion. Again, another very charismatic leader. And again, it's very important to remember that the fascists are very, very anti-communist. So there we have Mussolini, a picture of Mussolini. Maybe you've seen him before. Fascism in Spain. Spain's another country that's going to fall to fascism. So they have a huge internal civil war right after World War I, where they have a bunch of different factions fighting against each other. If I remember correctly, it's the communists against the socialists, against the anarchists, against the fascists, against the, I think it was another section of it was just extreme or religious extremists. So a lot of different people fighting each other inside of Spain. The only outside country that helps out Spain in this war or to stop the fascists in Spain, actually is the Soviet Union. They're the only country that sends support to try to stop fascism from spreading into Spain because fascism is so anti-communist. In the end, though, Franco and the fascists win, and so now we have 3 different countries that have a fascist dictatorship. Russia, just to catch us up on what's going on in Russia. They have the communist revolution right after, or basically in the middle of World War One. If you remember correctly, during World War One, they weren't prepared. They were sending out troops without guns. Most people didn't really even have food at home, so a lot of people wanted a change in government. And they do this through their communist revolution led by Vladimir Lenin. Lenin says that we need to grow the government in order to get everything organized because Russia is so backwards. And so he says the government is going to grow very, very large. And then as stuff gets organized, it's going to slowly start to disappear when those parts of the government no longer are necessary. Lenin, basically, he dies essentially because of stress, which leads to a stroke. And in the end, he wants to leave Russia to a guy named Leon Trotsky. But instead, Stalin, through a bunch of dirty party tricks, dirty political party tricks, is able to actually convince everyone else that he should be the one taking over. And so what Stalin does is to make sure that since there is this split between people who support Trotsky and people who support Stalin, he exiles Trotsky to Mexico and then has him killed with an ice pick in the back of his head. So the differences between these two people: Stalin is all about growing the government and keeping it there. So Lenin said we need to grow it and then we would start to dissolve it, but Stalin definitely wants to hold on to his power, so he's going to grow the government in order to serve his needs. He's an authoritarian dictator, so these are when we look at the Soviet Union and when we look at Nazi Germany, a lot of people say that they're very, very similar. They're actually not. The only thing they really share is the idea of having one person with all the power. Now, that's not really what Karl Marx's version of communism would be, but that's basically what they're doing right now. So getting back to this, so Trotsky versus Stalin. Stalin, again, authoritarian dictator. He's very nationalistic, and he wants to grow the Soviet Union to bring in more of the Slavic people. Trotsky wanted to eliminate the government eventually. He was the leader of the Revolutionary Red Army against the Tsar, and he was a very worker-friendly leader, whereas Stalin was more of a kind of business-friendly leader, even though he was technically a communist. There's a picture of Leon Trotsky. There's a picture of Joseph Stalin. You've probably seen Stalin before. So where's America while all this stuff is happening in Europe? Just like after like we talked about at the end of World War I, they become very isolationist. They keep to themselves. They're going to put America over other countries' problems. And they want to spend all of the money that they're making on themselves versus helping out other people. The Neutrality Act. This is signed to let the U.S. make money off of World War II without actually getting involved. So basically, they're going to say we're going to be semi-neutral, so that way we can sell supplies to both sides. All right, so Germany marches into Austria unopposed. We saw this idea of appeasement, giving Germany what it wants temporarily in order to keep it happy, so that you don't have to deal with them. He then takes Czechoslovakia by saying that they were abusing Germans, so he was spreading propaganda and lies about what was going on in Czechoslovakia in order to justify why he would then invade and take over. There's Europe, in case you forget where it was. It's a continent that's connected to Asia. Why are we not doing anything? It's easy for us to look back at this time and be like, hey, probably should have stopped this guy. But in order to understand why they didn't do anything, again, it's that idea of appeasement. We had just gotten out of one world war. We don't want to enter another one. Maybe if we just give Germany these tiny little bits of land that it really wants, maybe then they'll be done trying to clamor for more stuff. So Hitler signs a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union. We've talked about this earlier in this lecture, that the fascists really, really hate the communists. So Germany really, really hates the Soviet Union. Hitler writes a lot of stuff about his fury against the Soviet Union and how much he hates it. But he also understands that the Soviet Union is this giant country that is probably not going to be defeated unless Hitler is able to raise a larger army. So he goes to the Soviet Union and says, hey, I don't like you, you don't like me, but for right now, let's not attack each other. So that's what it means by non-aggression, we're not going to attack each other. So it basically allows both sides to build up their armies before they're going to attack each other. And then Hitler then doesn't have to worry about Eastern Europe. He can just focus on taking over Western Europe. And then once he takes over Western Europe, he'll turn around and start looking at the Soviet Union. So here's like kind of our non-aggression pact. You can see in red, this is where Germany was allowed to have land, so they were able to take like some land near Poland that the USSR wanted, but they agreed that Germany could have it as long as they're not attacking each other. All right, Blitzkrieg. This is the style of war that the Nazis use. Basically means like lightning war. So you go in there as quickly as possible to get rid of the enemy and just kind of overwhelm them. And they're able to do this because, unlike World War I, we now have faster tanks, we have faster and better planes, we have planes that can actually shoot, and now we're using Jeeps as well. So these are all like faster things that we can use. And so you do a huge like bombing raid, and then you send all the tanks in, and then usually that overwhelms the enemy to the point where you can win. France falls fairly quickly to Germany. If you look at like a map, it makes sense because Germany is right next to France, so that's what they're going to focus most of their army on. There's a lot of resistance though from within, so a lot of people write off the French right after they are defeated and say that, well, they really didn't do anything to help stop the Nazis, but that's actually not true. They had a lot of internal resistance against Nazi rule inside of France. Britain cannot defeat Germany, and its cities are being bombed, so they don't really have the threat of being invaded yet, because it's nice of them to be on that little island, but they are being routinely bombed by the Nazis. And so that's where this one stops for now. So, like I said, just make sure that, just like we do notes regularly in class, that you write down everything that's in red. If you did it on like pencil and paper, just take a picture of it and then turn it in with this assignment. If you did it on the Google Doc, just turn it in with this assignment as well. I'll start uploading some more of the lectures just as if we were in class. But, you know, for now, stay safe. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys later.